Okay, so Curtis, in preparation for our talk, I had a look at a couple of your videos, and yeah, I'm really impressed. You know, you completely did your own thing, like just following your calling
Yeah, yeah.
to make the teachings of this, I would say, forgotten man, more or less forgotten man, Swedenborg, known to a broader audience. And I didn't know him at all, although I have been in the spiritual circus for quite a while, for decades, and never came across him. And so it's really, really interesting what he has to say. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but it's still so precious.
Yeah, I feel like I've come across a lot of people who say, "How did I not know about Swedenborg before? Or how did I not learn about him in school? Or certainly if you're around the spirituality thing, because so much of modern spirituality has been influenced by Swedenborg as well. The near-death experience. In the book where Raymond Moody coined the term near-death experience, he had a whole section on Swedenborg and how there's a similarity between what Swedenborg recorded hundreds of years ago and modern near-death experiences. New thought, sort of new age, there's a lot of Swedenborgian influence in there. So I feel like part of what I'm doing is I can help fill in that picture for people. And like you said, yeah, you don't have to agree with all of it, but there's probably going to be something in there that's useful for anyone because there's so much that he reported on and there's so many details and nuances that I feel like Swedenborg is something you can add to anybody's diet, spiritual diet, and there'll be something in there they can digest.
Yeah, there was just one thing in particular which fascinated me. You did the illustration yourself, with the Lord in the middle, and then the innermost heaven, then intermediate heaven, outermost heaven, and then world of spirits, the hells. It really made me think, and I also thought I would like to talk about heaven with you. And what's your personal take? Because I'm sure you have your own experiences, what
Yeah, yeah.
Swedenborg has to say, because many of our viewers will be interested, and also, of course, my share. Manifesting, everybody's nowadays talking about manifesting, the
Mhm.
secret and so on and
Yep,
so
yep.
on. And I was just talking to a friend lately who said, Mark, we know each other for decades, okay? And he has been on the spiritual path even longer than I.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said, Mark, do we have the same experience that at a certain point, manifesting doesn't work anymore? It just doesn't. And I said, yes, Robert, because what I found out is that from a certain point on, things will only work if they're in sync or in tune with God's will, right?
Yeah.
So heaven is the place which is governed by God's will. Would you agree, or would Swedenborg agree?
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, heaven is the order imposed on reality by God's will if you let God's will do what it wants to do. So I agree with you that to a certain you get to a point where you're feeling like if I can just get what I want, then life will be better. Life will be better until I get to the point where I feel like I don't know what's good for me. Like I don't know what I need, and I don't have the wisdom to know, what needs to happen now that would be best for me in 5 years or 10 years, and what needs to happen that will be best for the next person and the next person. So God's will is seeing the whole picture, knowing how the whole thing works, and according to Swedenborg, there's a divine order that when things get put in that order, they work, and you can see this in the place that he points it out most prolifically is in the human body. So Swedenborg was an anatomist. He was renowned at the time for having written these sort of defining volumes on human anatomy. So he was we know a lot more about the body now than he did back then, but he knew a lot about how the body worked. And he said that heaven follows the same order that the human body does. So if you look at the human body as a model of cooperation and mutual interdependence and heaven. Like everything in the body, it's full of different things. You've got your ribs are very different than your spleen is very different than your toenails. They're not trying to be the same thing. However, they work together as one thing, because each of them does their particular part, their particular job for the whole, and then receives everything it needs from the whole. And he says that that's actually God's order in miniature form, and that heaven is when human beings as a whole come into that order. So a bunch of people living together in the kind of harmony you see inside the body. And that's what I've gotten to a point in my life too, where I'm like, I just want to know, like, what's the best, you tell me what you tell me what the best way to do it is. And I want to do it like that. And so that's what I'm trying to search for. It's like, what is the divine order? What is the will of God? And I would think heaven is a particular kind of happiness that you get from working with divine order. So divine order is the intent that everyone, Swedenborg in one place says, divine love is the intent that everyone should be most profoundly and fully happy. So that's like the goal. That's the goal of divine love. So the more that I can align with that goal and find my joy in trying to do things that I think support that goal, that's one kind of happiness that has this peace with it and has this calm and this connection that Swedenborg would call that happiness heaven. And he says that's at the core of the state of heaven, which that's different than other kinds of happiness. I can have the peace of God because I can have things that seem like they're happiness, like when my ego or my will gets what it wants. For a little while, I feel like this is great. I'm getting everything I want. But then like when I'm making videos and I'm like, oh, there's so many views on this video. I'm the coolest guy in the world. That's great. But then when the next time when the video doesn't get a lot of views and I feel like, oh, what am I doing wrong? So it's kind of the roller coaster of the ego. That's not heaven. That can be something that supports heaven if you're trying to do something good online to spread good messages. But the real heaven is searching for the will of God and enjoying participating in it. And slowly, according to Swedenborg, and what I've found is slowly throughout my life, the divine is slowly changing my will so that it matches with the divine order if I let it. And so that's me kind of trying to get dragged into heaven.
Yeah, I think we're exactly on the same page here, and also on the same page with Swedenborg, because obviously this is not something that Swedenborg said, like that heaven works or is organized in fractals. That's something you said at one point, but maybe it's the same as to say, as above, so below. Or nowadays we're talking about holograms, right?
Yes.
And now you took the example of the organization of the body. Like each of us is like one cell, right? And
Yes.
now if one cell says, okay, I'm gonna apply the secret and manifest whatever I want. So this is like one cell in our body is doing its thing. Yeah, I did it my way.
Yeah.
But this is actually like cancer.
Yes.
Like when cells are doing their own thing, or like an autoimmune disease,
Yes.
the body starts attacking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's right. And to be really to you also stated, or Swedenborg states that in heaven there's like perfect communication between each of us, between all the souls and the angels and so on and so on.
Yeah.
In a way that's the same. If I say, God, you show me what you will have up your sleeve for me, because you know best, you know the big picture. I just see fragments, I just see details.
Yes.
And all I can do is open up and yeah, try to be as open as possible, so to be in communication with as many beings and as possible, so in order to be in sync, to be in tune with the whole.
That's a great way to put it. And it just is the truth. Like you're saying, if one cell says, I'm going to go over here and live my life the way I want to live, it destroys life. It destroys the cell can't even live on its own. It can't live without the body, so it doesn't even realize that it's harming itself. But yeah, then again, it destroys this greater order, which is the body. But if all the cells do what you're talking about, and they buy in and say, what's God's will for me? How can I connect to the most people? And then everybody benefits, because when the body is healthy, that health extends to every cell. It's not like a cell says, okay, fine, I'll help the body instead of going my own way, and then it just shrivels up and dies. No, it gets everything it needs. The bloodstream comes and brings it oxygen. The immune system protects it. So heaven is not just giving of yourself to the whole, but the whole gives back to you. And then you find that, okay, because why are there so many people? If you're a God and you're making the human race, why so many people? Couldn't you just have made like 50 people, and then we don't have to have so much competition? But with the body model, it's like, no, the more you think about as a human being grows from being just like a couple little cells as an embryo to being bigger, the bigger the body, the more cells in the body, the better it can perform its functions. Like an adult can do so many more things than a child can. It's the same with the human race.
Yeah, and it's like, I love the saying of Lao Tse, who said, all truth is paradoxical, that as a matter of fact, to follow God's will and I will say something more about it, how to do this, how can we even receive God's will and understand it and so on. But, so many people think they're individuals, but actually they're just copycatting, And I think you're a good example for real individuality, because you said you got the message, okay, do this Swedenborg thing. And your mind surely, or I just figure, will have said, okay, why? Nobody's interested,
Yes.
Why should I do this? But this is real individuality, that this is something that was missing. And, and it's, if all of us together, we're like a big puzzle, then of course we are the puzzle piece that is missing. And so we cannot just copy someone else, because if we were the same as someone else, we would just be superfluous, right?
Yes, and then, if I'm just a version of someone else, and a worse version, let's say there's other people who can do everything better than me, then why am I even here? Why have all these people around? But that's a great analogy with a puzzle, because if you build a puzzle and there's one piece missing, it ruins the whole thing. Like, I don't have that piece, you don't feel like the puzzle's completed. So everybody is their own puzzle piece. And what I love about how Swedenborg describes heaven is that there's a communication of all with the one and of one with the all. So each person that's there in heaven, in that order, makes heaven better for everyone who's there. And everyone works to bring the joy of heaven to each person. So everyone who's watching this show, you, me, we can all do something in a way that nobody else ever can or ever will. And that's actually, according to Swedenborg, that's what we're made for, that human beings are created to be useful, to do something helpful. And there's something each of us can do that nobody else can do. So everybody that goes into the heaven state of mind makes it better for everyone else. So everyone who's already in heaven, it's not like, on earth it can be, if you're in a very wealthy neighborhood and you think, I don't want any more people moving here because then it'll be crowded and I won't like it as much. But in heaven, they according to Swedenborg, they want nothing more than for more people to arrive, because one, they want to give the happiness that's there to those people. That's what heaven is. But two, everyone who arrives makes heaven better for everyone who's there. So it's I guess they call it a positive feedback loop.
Can you say something more about that positive feedback loop?
So that's where, like in a science experiment, where whenever something happens, that makes it happen more. So if you have, I don't know a good example of one, but if you have, let's say like a slide of like a bunch of rocks going down a hill, every rock that they knock loose and that joins them makes that rock slide more and more powerful. So it gets building and going faster and bigger and bigger. So for heaven, everyone who's there makes heaven better because they bring their uniqueness to it. And so that draws more people in, and then the more people who come in, it's not a competition, it's a win-win.
Okay, so that maybe we're at the point where I would like to share with you a method that came to me. Of course, it's not my method, but it was also
Right.
like a divine gift.
Yeah.
What has been shown to me that there is only one spot, tiny, tiny, tiny spot in our being where we can really receive God's will, and this is the heart chakra. And Buddha actually said the same. He said, the way is not in the sky.
Yeah.
The way is in the heart. And although Buddha did not believe in God, because he said there are more important things to think about, and just
Yeah.
very, very practical, very practical guy.
Yep.
But still, he came to the same conclusions. Yeah. So, as you said, heaven can only be reached by just being loyal to those transcendental or transcendent qualities like truthfulness, like truth itself, like
Yeah.
goodness, love,
Yes.
wisdom, compassion, all these things. And I found out that the heart will only respond in a positive way. You were talking about positive feedback loop. The heart will only respond in a positive way if something is true, if is it good, if it's loving, if it's beautiful, and so on and so on. And if not, if you try to force something into your being which is not true, then the heart closes. So what I found out is that actually the heart is the only place that has never been hurt. People always keep talking, okay, my heart is being heard. But as a matter of fact, the heart will only close because we believe something that is not true. For instance, if someone says, okay, my heart closed because you left me. So the truth is, I talk to God about all these things. The truth is,
Yeah.
if somebody leaves me and I am attached, so I make myself dependent and I actually leave my heart, then that's the real reason why the heart closes. It's not because the person in the outer world left me, but because I left myself. Just
Yeah.
an example. So many things are not at all the way we think, right? And so that the heart has never been hurt. The heart is the place where we're always in perfect peace, in perfect harmony, where there's always unconditional love. This is heaven, right?
Yeah.
It's actually in the heart. Ramana Maharshi said the same thing, actually, and many, many more. And so we can put everything, every sentence, every single thought that goes through our mind to the test and see how does my heart react. If it opens, if there is joy, if there's peace, if there's some form of relief, then it's true. If it feels hollow, if it feels empty, there's just no reaction, or the heart even closes, then we know this is a lie, or this is only a half-truth, and let's inquire and find out what is the real truth.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So you actually you can feel it. Like you'll think things to yourself, and you can feel the impact it has on your heart, and kind of can engage things by that.
Yeah, I get the goosebumps now as you say this.
That's great. I love that. It reminds me of Swedenborg talks about what he calls perception, which is the ability to be able to tell right away if something's true or false. And it sounds like you're describing something like that, which is that the heart knows instinctively if something's real.
Yeah, because there's no ego in the heart. Like when we really enter the heart, we surrender to God's will, we let go of all of our concepts and ideas and experiences and so on, and we just innocently enter into our heart. Then we find out, actually, here inside, I'm nobody. And as nobody, I have no opinion. You know?
Right.
And because I have no opinion, now I'm free to really see what's the truth.
No agenda.
And-
Yeah.
I have no agenda, no preconceptions, and like God in my heart helps me or educates me to see the truth. And for me, that's completely fascinating. And I found out that everybody has this ability, and now all I'm doing actually is just sharing this with people and having them find out that they actually, all of them, they know the truth. I don't have to teach like a spiritual teacher usually does, but just to keep asking questions. How does it feel? And then maybe ask the right questions. The ego always wants the answers, but what I found is that it's more about the right questions.
The right
And
questions.
then automatically we get the answers. So is there anything Swedenborg said about this, or what's your take?
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I like talking about Swedenborg on YouTube, which, as you mentioned, when I set out to put out Swedenborg on YouTube, I thought,
Nobody.
You did so once or twice.
Yeah, exactly. When I started, I thought nobody's going to be interested in this.
Nobody's going to be interested in this. But one thing I really like about it is that I've gone around and talked to a lot of people, and I feel like there's always things from Swedenborg that relate to what they're saying, because I feel like people are tapping into a truths that are universal. So I certainly see a couple of things in Swedenborg that go along with or connect to what you just said. The first thing that, as I mentioned, that came to my mind was perception. So perception is sort of an ability that Swedenborg describes, which sounds a lot like what you're saying, which is the ability to know on hearing something whether it's true or not. So Swedenborg had this journey that he had to go on because he was very smart and very successful guy. Before his spiritual awakening, he was, as I said, he was an inventor, a nobleman. He was a leading scientist in a number of areas. So he's very successful, and actually had a pretty big ego. Was a bit thought he was better than everybody else. And he kept a journal of his sort of spiritual awakening as it happened, and he was having to grapple a lot with his own being full of himself because of this. And previously he had placed a lot of emphasis on trying to be smart, to be smarter than everyone else, and the more things you can know and recite, the smarter you are. And in Swedenborg's day, there was a lot of, it was considered sort of an intellectual achievement to be able to argue for a concept and prove it, and then turn around and argue the opposite and prove that. Like, look how smart I am, I can do both of these. So that was the sort of the mood at the time. But to him, as he had this spiritual awakening, there was this huge shift in him where he was shown or realized that actually love is more important than truth, that love drives truth, and that it is that wisdom, he talked a lot about wisdom being love and wisdom are the two things a human being should seek, and that wisdom is not having a bunch of book learning or being very intelligent. Wisdom is about knowing that what is true and that what is false. So it's exactly like you're describing, where the thing that's important is to be able to tell, oh, this is I don't need this thing right now. And he said that what came as a shock to him is that actually it's not the mind that leads the heart, it's the heart that leads the mind.
Right.
And that's not at all how the intellectual climate was in Europe at the time. It was not at all what his life was like. But as he began to see more and more of the spirit and how people actually work, that actually everybody is motivated by what they love, and that dictates sort of what their mind does. So the ideal state is to, as you say, be humble, be innocent, be open, and that opens this channel to the divine, where you can you sort of tap into all that wisdom that God has about what's the right way to go. Because you can be full of a bunch of ideas and be very smart and yet lead yourself down the wrong path. Lead yourself to be that cancer cell that you talked about before. And then all your intelligence actually works against you because it's leading you into a life that's not good for you and not good for the human race. But if you get into the state you talked about, with that innocent, open listening, then you're letting God lead you into the life that's going to make you happy, make everyone else happy. And so that's real wisdom. So to me, I see so much resonance in that and what you described. And I'm curious about it sounds like you try to help people get to this state where they can listen to their heart better. Does it take a lot of work for people to get there, or is it most people are right there? Yeah.
Not at all. This is so surprising. And actually what happened is like that I was in the middle of a curriculum with people that usually went for 1 year or 20 days in a row or something like that. And then I got sick. And in the middle of the night, like I heard God's voice speaking to me, telling me, Marc, no more curriculums. Difficult word.
Yeah.
I just want you to help people realize that they're all already whole and perfect, that they already have everything inside of them, and just teach from there. So this also means just let go of all time, no future, no past, just in this moment, because, you can only hear the truth in your heart in this very moment. Yeah. And then the next day, I went to the seminar room and I told people, okay, I'm sorry, but the seminar is over the way I thought it. And you read it on my website and so on. I'm sorry, but God told me tonight we have to do everything in a completely different manner. And then everything was being shown to me, how to work with people, which questions to ask, and so on and so on. And, it was so much fun. And people feel so empowered and so, like they feel they can arrive in a moment. They will then find out, okay, this place of heaven right now, it's very, very small. But there's my whole conditioned self, which is completely different from this place. So now I have to re-educate, or let God re-educate me, so that everything is, like you said, organized in a heavenly way. And only the more I do this, the more the peace of God arises, the more I'm feeling blissful, the more freedom I feel, and so on and so on. But it's like people arrive at this place in 1 minute, in 1 day, or something like this.
Yeah.
Then from there on, it's just like they're on a new journey. They're not struggling for decades to get somewhere on their spiritual path, like people usually do. And this is in a way what God told me, like, Marc, in a way this is abuse, to tell people they are not whole and perfect and they have to reach somewhere and they have to book a seminar with you and they have to do this and that. I said, okay, well, yeah, you're right, but okay, how?
What else can I do?
Yeah, what can I do? Because I don't know how. And so that what I came to realize is that you also quoted that, like in John, I don't know the verse, God says that without me, uh, human mankind cannot achieve anything or cannot do anything.
Yes. Right.
And it's so radical. And I also feel like that this is normally the reason why people don't find heaven, because they want to bring their ego into heaven. And it's like it's not allowed, it's not possible. You can only like become like a child and completely innocently, like Buddha said, to know everything you have to forget everything. And then it's not my knowledge, it's just divine knowledge. I know nothing.
Yeah. Well,
To be humble,
yeah.
like you said, I also had such a big ego. I was so full of myself, and I was like not intelligent but intellectual. Yeah,
Yeah.
But for me to come to this place, to be honest and say, okay, I don't know anything, that was hard. That was tough.
Yeah,
How
because
did you experience that? I mean,
yeah, if you're used to playing that game where it's a competition between you and everyone else in the human race, and you're trying to get ahead of them, and that's sort of what everyone's born into. And if you've been playing that game for a long time, and that's where you feel like your value is, and your security is, because this is how I'm securing a good future for myself, is to be better than people in whatever way. For some people, it's to be wealthier. For some people, it's to be more renowned. For some people, it's to be more skilled. But if that's what I'm doing to make myself safe, to let go and play a different game, that the one that God is wanting us to play, that's scary, because you feel like I don't know where any of this is going.
yeah.
But that what you're saying there again matches up with there's this almost every truth is paradoxical, you said, and one of the most paradoxical truths that I feel like Swedenborg hammers over and over and over again is that he says, everything that comes from yourself is the opposite of heaven.
So everything
that comes from, it's not that you would not do things anymore, but there's a way to do things from yourself, and there's a way to do things from the Lord. And to Swedenborg, that distinction became very clear. It's not that you would do very different actions, but it's actually the Lord coming in and doing it through you, rather than you. And you could do the very same thing. Like I could come and do this show with you from myself, or it could be the Lord coming through me. I'm hoping it's the Lord, but you don't know for sure. But from the self, it's about the motivation. So why am I doing what I'm doing, and what do I believe about what I'm doing? If I believe that all my ability to, right now I'm saying words to you and stringing sentences together, that the ability to do that comes from God. Only God can create that. But if I believe that it's me doing that, I believe that it's me knowing these things, if I believe that it's me that got me to the place where you want to even have me as an interviewee on your show, I'm bringing myself into it, and I'm kind of ruining that heaven. But if I believe that for him, it was so important to understand that all goodness comes from God. All the good, everything good and everything true comes from God. He likened God to the sun, where like all the light and heat that hits the earth and powers the ecosystems, and like that is, there's a spiritual equivalent of that, which is all the love is like all heat, and all the truth is like all light. So inside you, all the love and truth is coming out of God like the sun. And the more that I understand that's a key component of heaven. Like everybody in heaven knows that no, everything good, don't go telling me that I'm so great. Everything good that I have comes from God, and everything true that I think comes from God. And until you have that in your mind, you can't get into that what you're describing, which is, I think Swedenborg would call the stream of providence, where you are letting God guide you through life, from Him, rather than trying to make your own way from yourself.